I'm Lisa Snyderman, and this is Conversations on Creating to Heal. And today I'm thrilled to be speaking with Mark Romero from Laguna Niguel, Southern California, a sound healing expert and transformational leader who's helping people overcome limitations, expand awareness, and live their dreams. And his story is how a former consultant for NASA discovered healing frequencies in his music that led him to create sound technologies that are helping people around the world to heal their lives. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I talked a little bit about what you are and who you are. Do you have maybe a brief mission or purpose that describes why you are doing what you're doing, sound healing and transformational leadership?
You know, it's interesting you asked that question because I have to, this is something that's really kind of been there throughout as long as looking back in my life that I've had a passion about. And I think that is really to help people to kind of like peel back the layers and reveal the masterpiece that's within. You know, we're all these magnificent expressions of life, of universal energy, whatever you want to call it. And I really think a big part of our journey in our human experience is to kind of like chip away the pieces and reveal the masterpiece that's within. So that's always been kind of my passion. It was something that was in throughout my career, my past careers. And so when you ask the question, what's my mission? Well, it's really kind of to help people to remember who they really are and live a more empowered life.
I love that. That's a beautiful mission. And let's talk. Let's hear this story. I'm so intrigued how a former consultant for NASA discovered these healing frequencies. So talk about this and maybe talk about how this transformed you.
Well, you know, it was the last thing on my agenda. You know, I've been playing guitar for a long time. I went to go see Pink Floyd, The Wall in concert way back when, and was like inspired and had to go, you know, I became the kid who tormented his father on a regular basis. Give me a guitar, give me a guitar. He finally did and picked it up, and it was love at the first strum. And after I'd been, you know, working and playing for so long, I'd always had this passion. I said, you know, I want to make an album just to have the experience of playing music in public. So in the early 2000s, my neighbor was a professional drummer. He helped me produce the album. We put it together. Back then, you had to like run 1,000 CDs, you know, to get a run on CDs. And I was like giving them away. My intention certainly was not to get into the music business and certainly not to get into any kind of healing or transformational work with music. But you know what? Life always has its way of unfolding in the most peculiar ways. And so one night I'm playing at a wellness center. And after I'm done playing, the woman that runs the center, she comes up to me. She goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "I hear these tones in your music." And I'm looking at her. I'm like, "Oh man, this lady, she's going to get weird." I just had this like intuitive hit. And then she got right up in my face and she goes, "And nobody can hear the tones but me." And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, yeah, I heard some tones too back in the 80s, listening to Pink Floyd, watching the Lava Lamp. We heard some tones. And she goes, "No, I'm serious. Let me get a CD. I know these scientists." And so I gave her a CD. She ends up giving it to this gentleman by the name of Dr. Jones, who was a former top consultant to NASA, who was looking for music that would help people to rise above the negative effects of all the, what he called energy disruptors in our environment. So, you know, we're exposed to 80,000 man-made chemicals in our air, food, and water. You know, we all have the latest and greatest, you know, electronic technology and Wi-Fi and smart meters. And all this stuff they were able to determine back then was disrupting our energy, putting us into a state of disharmony, causing stress, causing compromised mental and physical performance. And so they were looking for things like music and different things to help people really rise them above the static and noise of the modern day world, so to speak. So that's how I got connected and ultimately really kind of changed the whole course of my life, the direction that I was going.
So talk a little bit about these healing frequencies. What is that like? What does that for somebody who's not familiar with sound healing, can you describe it a little bit?
Well, you think everything is vibration. So I think the really cool thing that kind of took the edge off of this new agey concept was the fact that Dr. Jones was a quantum physicist. And it was a very scientific approach to what the esoterics and wisdom traditions have been talking about for thousands of years. So from my left brain standpoint back then, that was very helpful. And so you think of everything as made of energy. I think quantum physics has really kind of redefined the world and the universe that we live in. Everything is energy. Everything vibrates at a different frequency. Our senses have been calibrated to receive certain wavelengths of vibrational information that we call light, color, sound, all these different aspects. So, as I mentioned about the energy disruptors, our energy is constantly being challenged by these things in our environment. I call them miscreations, things that we've put into our modern day world that really aren't good for us, like chemicals and Wi-Fi and these different aspects. So what happens when the music plays, it actually tunes listeners' energy fields, even though they're being exposed to the things we're exposed to every day in our lives. And so Dr. Jones had kind of attributed this as to a frequency or a quality of the music that actually was creating this shift. And how they identified this shift was through brain mapping, saw how our brains function and how our brains are really being compromised by the things in our environment that cause stress, and how as soon as the music was playing, you would see a shift in brainwave activity, but you would also be able to actually physically experience a shift in your physical energy. So
Wow.
there was lots of different ways that you could give people a demonstration of what happens when their energy is in tune.
And so how do you relate this to healing? I understand shifts in energy is healing. Obviously, that's something, it's very personal. It can be spiritual. It can be physical. There's so many ways to experience that. How do you experience it? And how are others experiencing it that you're working with this technology?
Well, if you think of ourselves, we're these masterful, beautiful, powerful biological supercomputers. We have all these multifacets, not only of our own lives, but of our body and how we operate. And they're kind of like a symphony orchestra. And so if you think about it, a symphony orchestra comes together, they all play off the same sheet of music. Well, what would happen if you gave each instrument within the orchestra a different sheet of music and they all started playing at the same time? It would sound very chaotic and disharmonious. And that's really what we're kind of experiencing on an energetic, on a physical, mental, emotional level. Look at it. We have more issues with, I call them isms, autism, all these different neurological conditions, different situations that are showing up in our modern day world more than ever. And why is that? These scientists felt that these were out pictures of disharmonious energy. So by bringing all of the aspects of yourself, who and what you are, the instruments within the orchestra of who we are, and get them all on the sheet of music, well, you could perform at a higher level. You could make beautiful music. You could create breakthroughs around barriers, shift your life, improve your health, wellness, and vitality. And there are so many different benefits. Myself being a guitarist, I could be the best guitarist in the world, but if my strings aren't in tune, am I going to play beautiful music? No, I'm not going to. It doesn't matter how well I play. I could play like Andre Segovia. It's not going to matter if I'm not in tune. Well, the same principle applies to you and me. When we're not in tune, we fail to reach our true potential, which is, unlimited in possibilities.
Well, that's such a great explanation. You really gave a lot to think about and a lot to process, especially for somebody maybe not familiar with this technology. Now we've kind of got a cerebral sense of what this is. Can I also invite you to share something so that we get a sense of what it feels like? So it could be something, share a piece of music. I think that would be lovely. Yeah.
Twist my arm. That's always okay if I must. So basically, kind of like out of this discovery, I started creating music to help people reduce stress and enhance mental and physical performance. That's where I started. And I kind of attribute that to tuning energy. And then as I began to progress and move forward, I realized, you know, I found out that our own thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions are energetic in nature also. So I thought, well, what would happen if I composed music to my coaching clients? So I started doing healing sessions and coaching work and playing pieces of music. Somebody would come to me and say, hey, you know, and we'd have a conversation. I could tell they were lacking confidence. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm going to play this person a piece of music on confidence. So I would set the intention, and it's almost like the guitar would play me. Out would come some kind of piece of music, and I would record it and send it to them and say, hey, or play this in your environment, and let's see what shows up. And inevitably, these people would start having shifts and breakthroughs. So when I think of pieces of music that have been the most powerful and that everybody gets, no matter who they are, I call these pieces musical mantras. There's a piece for self-love. And self-love is a powerful state of being. And it's something that we all can open up to another level. So that's what I'm going to play. And I'd really like to kind of like get everybody involved here to, first of all, one, no matter where you are at in your life, no matter how much you think you love yourself, are you willing to set the intention to love yourself even more? Because let me tell you, we're never done what we can expand into. And secondly, I want you to breathe. Just breathe. Just bring your attention to your breath. And as I play, I want you to imagine breathing in the notes. It's almost like, you know, I'm going to breathe in some self-love. And we'll meet up on the other side of this piece. And so just take some nice deep breaths. Just take another nice deep breath. And there's always something I like to have people do after I do a piece, and that is in the next 24 hours, go on and take an act of self-love for yourself. You know, go get yourself a massage, get out in nature, take a bath with candles, whatever it is for you, whatever the first thing that pops up in your head, take that on and then really take notice and begin to look to see what shifts in your experience. I guarantee something will shift. It's up to all of us to keep our eyes open and look for those little synchronicities or those little happenings that kind of lead us on our journey through life. So there you go.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
What a special way to experience music with instruction and guidance. I mean that with love, with a way to set an intention. I think that's it's special, and it really helps me, to accept what I'm listening to in a different way. So
Cool.
before we go, may I ask you for some life lessons? So for people who might be going through something similar and with their search for meaning, search for healing, that you might want to impart.
I think, in that, what showed up as you kind of said that was, as we go through life, we go through the twists and turns, we go through the ups and downs of the human experience. We encounter challenges, we encounter obstacles. And I think a big part that works against us is that we've all been kind of conditioned to fight and resist those challenges in our lives. We use colorful metaphors to describe them. We get upset, we get angry. And one of the biggest things that I found helpful, not only for myself, but with people that I work with, is look at the challenges in your life as kind of like the instrument lights on the dashboard of your car. When the oil light comes on, you don't cover it up with tape. You don't ignore it. You don't scream at it. No, you go get your oil looked at or changed or whatever it needs to get done. And if we use our challenges and our obstacles and these twists and turns in that way, we can begin to use them as almost like rungs in the ladder up to the next level of our human experience, up to the next level of happiness, joy, and fulfillment, but really begin to use those things as a way to continue to evolve and take our lives to the next level. So that's what kind of showed up for me out of the experience. So much can open up for us just when we let go of the resistance and begin to use these things as a way to lift our life to another level. Because that really is what the game of life is all about. It's about lifting our lives and revealing who and what we are and remembering our magnificence and our unlimited potential.
Thank you, Mark. I think on those really inspirational words, I just wholeheartedly thank you for sharing that with us and sharing a piece of your journey.
My pleasure. Thank you.